Want to learn about transitioning from self publishing to traditional publishing? Then this is the episode for you. Hi, I'm Tonya Ellis, host of Write This, my author interview show, and today I am excited to welcome Angela Dalton, a picture book writer who has self published books and been successful with traditional publishing as well. So I love to pick her brain to see how she's made the transition and to learn about her new releases and upcoming works. I see that she's joined us, so I'm going to get her on. And thank you, everyone. Let me see, I'm going to send her an invite to join me. It's been a wonderful time to be here in Houston. Hey, how are you
Good.
doing?
How are you, girl? It's good to see you.
It's so good to see you. And it was so smooth getting you on. Sometimes it takes a while to get people on. So this is a new feeling for me on the slide.
We did
Yes,
it. We did it.
we made it. Well, it's so good to see you again. I met you in person at the Kindling Words Writers Retreat in February, and we've been planning this, so I'm so happy to have you on and to learn all about your author journey, because I didn't really talk a lot about your background when I met you. So I'm curious to learn all about how you became an author and learn about your works. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from and how did you start writing?
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a great question. Like, how far back do you want to go?
Well, not to you, we have a half an hour, so whatever, the short version. Yeah.
Thanks for that. Oh, okay. So I would say, how far back, knowingly that I wanted to be a writer was actually third grade. I can say that with confidence that at third grade, I knew I wanted to be a writer. I loved writing stories. I loved reading. I loved reading more than I liked writing, but I loved storytelling. And, as most Black Gen Xers know, there was not a lot of books with us as main characters where we could see ourselves. So my favorite series growing up was Choose Your Own Adventure series because
Oh.
you could actually like see yourself as the main character. And I love that. And I also gravitated towards comic books because comic books were the first types of the first type of literature that saw Black people. You saw, Black Panther. So that's how I really like got started into writing, was just that I loved reading so much and I love stories. But, fast forward many, many years, we're not going to say how many years. I went to college. I wanted to do the creative writing track, and I applied for it. You had to actually like submit a 25-page manuscripts. And so I wrote it, worked on it, submitted it, got into creative writing program. But then my pops was like, I'm not paying thousands of dollars for you to be a starving artist. You know,
Right.
like crushed my dream, like
Oh.
crushed me. I'm like, he doesn't know I could be the next Maya Angelou. But luckily I had an advisor, a counselor who was really smart and said, you know what? If he wants you to make money, you could be a copywriter, an advertising copywriter. Why don't you submit your manuscript to the journalism school and see what happens? And I got in on this like completely different admission piece that I was surprised that they even accepted it. But and so that's how I got into really writing professionally and for business. Now, fast forward a few, years from that, I got into digital technology. I was a digital producer, and I worked at a company where we did online games and activities based off of animated TV shows. So some of my clients were Nick Jr., Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, Adult Swim. And that's where I learned really about how to write for kids, because I would have to take their story Bible. So for anybody who doesn't know, story Bible for a show is like everything about the show. It's about the world building, it's the backstories about the characters, it's like how the season is going to play out, all the information that you need from beginning to end. And so my job was to go through that and pull out ideas for potential games that could complement and support either the episode or an entire season. And so really that's where I learned about craft of writing and story structure, again, specifically for kids. And I just loved it. I loved it so much. And so now, fast forward even more, after being in digital marketing, digital producing, I moved from Minnesota, which is where I'm from originally. I moved around as a kid a lot, but I call Minnesota home. And moved from Minnesota to Oakland, California. I had left my job. I was working at General Mills in corporate for a really long time, left that job, and I had a clean slate. And my husband said, what do you want to do? What's something you've always wanted to do? And I said, I've always wanted to write a children's book. And he said, well, you don't have anything else to do, so why don't you try doing that? And that was 2016. So really, I've been writing for children since, I mean, in writing picture books in that form since 2016. But I feel like I like to say I've been writing for kids for a really, really long time. I would say going close to almost over 10 years, more than 10
Right.
years.
That's interesting because I didn't know if you were originally from California. So you answered that question that I had. Now, here's a question. So, I thought you self published your first book. Is that true?
That
So, I
is.
wanted to thing from self publishing to traditional publishing because a lot of people who tune in might have interest in that and learn what the journey is and steps they need to take if they're interested in pursuing that.
Absolutely. I would say so when I self-published in 2016, from then to 2024, there's been a huge positive, great shift in the self-publishing world. And when I mean that in regards to how people in traditional publishing view self-publishers. Because when I first started self-publishing, it was like a dirty word.
Mhm.
I had many like situations, episodes, experiences at like SCBWI where people would like be condescending to me. They would say like, "Oh, you're one of those." Like it
Mhm.
was really, really bad.
Yeah.
But I believed in my story so much, I really didn't care what people said. So like I was, 2016, didn't know what I was doing, didn't know what I wanted to do, wrote this screenplay, or sorry, the manuscript based on something that my grandmother said, which was, Angela, if you ever feel alone or lost, just look up to the sky. And if you see the moon peeking through the clouds, just know that you're where you're supposed to be and you're with people who love you and you're going to be safe because you're watched over. And that is just something that had always stuck with me as a kid. It's the reason why I have a love for space and astronomy. I just love it. I just love anything about space and space exploration, which has a lot to do with the books that I write.
Yeah.
So I just really, I wanted to write this story because I felt like it was something that could be shared with children when they're in situations that they just don't feel comfortable or they feel scared and they feel alone. So I published that book. I worked with a wonderful press called Beavers Pond Press, based in Minnesota. And they helped me, figure out like what were the skill sets that I needed, who were the people I needed to work with. They were just wonderful in like this a la carte way of saying, we really like your story, but it needs more work. We need editorial help. And I don't care what anybody says. If you are self-publishing, get yourself an editor.
Yes.
A lot of people in self-publishing, they think like, I'm just going to write it any old way. No, no, you're not. This is still a craft and this is still a business and you
Right.
have to treat it as such. So that's the first thing I tell people that want to get into self-publishing is just because you have an idea does not mean that that makes a book, So really study the craft of self-publishing. Otherwise, you're also going to waste a lot of your own money.
Mm-mm.
So working with this publishing company, they helped me align me with an illustrator who, funny enough, it turned out I knew 15 years prior to this meeting that we had. Yeah, she was a woman who I'd met through a group of people, like when I was in advertising. And so it just felt like synergistic for us to
Mhm.
be working on this book together. She's a lovely fine artist. Her work is gorgeous. Her name is Margarita Sikorskaya. The book that she and I created together is called If You Look Up to the Sky.
Do
And
you have a
so
copy of it there?
I
Do you have it?
do.
Okay, yeah,
Hold
show it
on.
to us. Yeah, I want to see. I think
Okay.
I've seen
I
it.
have all the books behind me,
Right.
but so this
Oh,
is,
that's
let's see if you can see it. If you look up to the sky. We won some
yes.
awards.
Right.
We won some awards. And I'll show you my favorite illustration because again, like I said, Margarita is just a fantastic, fabulous creator to work with.
And you
And
could
she
have
just
gone wild promoting that this week if you were
I-
still marketing that book. Yeah.
if I had like time, but
I
but
know.
this is like my favorite.
Oh, oh wow. Yeah, that's beautiful.
So, the thing about self-publishing and versus traditional publishing, I wouldn't say it's not easier. Again, it's just a different type of grind.
Mhm.
You still have to take it seriously as a business because, again, you're putting your money into it. So you really need to know how it works, how publishing works, how books get printed. And so, the hardest part about it was distribution because, again, when I started doing it in 2016, self-published books didn't have the best reputation. And so it really took a lot of legwork of me going into booksellers and showing the book, having the copy of like, no, I really put like time and thought and energy into how is this looking, how does this match up to books you have on your shelf, because
Mhm.
you do have to compete with the HarperCollins of the world and the, Simon Schusters of the world. So your book does have to look a certain way. But over the years, I think because there have been organizations like Independent Book Publishing Association, IBPA, which is a great association if you want to be a self-published author. I would say join them and do their
Mhm.
workshops,
I've
do
never
that
heard of
networking.
that.
Oh yeah,
INPA. Okay.
IBPA, Independent Book Publishing Association.
Okay,
I would
cool.
say check them out. They have great tools and resources. But I also say I believe that they've been really fundamental in changing the lens of self-published books,
Mhm.
because of the work that they've done, because they've offered the tools and the resources and the education to people, that they've really leveled up what self-publishing looks like. So I, I say it for anybody who really wants to own their story and the creative piece of it from beginning to end. Because as you know, Tracy, in traditional publishing, you don't have that luxury. You write
Right.
the story gets acquired. Luckily, you have a great editor. Like I had a great editor who's always had me be a part of the illustrator selection process, which
Right.
has been nice, but that's not the norm.
Okay.
And so it's like all of a sudden, like you write the story, it goes away, and then it's like, here's your book, you know?
And that
And
was my experience. I was able to give input on the illustrator. They chose it, but they gave me a list and let me rank my favorites and have a little bit of input in that. So I was happy with that.
I love,
But and another thing I wanted to echo with you is the distribution that still has not changed because I've self-published my Sophie Washington series, and that was a key factor in leading me to pursue traditional publishing because I would have to go, let's say it was in one Barnes and Noble, that doesn't mean it's going to be in all the Barnes and Nobles. And I had to go any
yeah.
library I wanted in, I had to pitch all these places, and it just became unmanageable. And I
It,
wanted that distribution.
it becomes a full-time job. And I think that's something that people, when they get into self-publishing, don't understand, that it absolutely becomes a full-time job because you're doing the distribution, you're doing the promotion, you're doing all of it yourself.
Right. And if you want your book to sell, if you just want it as a passion project or something fun and you're not really worried about the sales, that's an option. But long term, if you have multiple books, it may not be, I didn't find it sustainable.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. So
Mhm.
that's where I did the same as you did, the transition and I was like, let me check out traditional publishing.
So, what did you do? Tell us the steps of what things you did.
So when I decided I wanted to when I wanted to try out and learn more about traditional publishing, I joined 12 by 12 Picture Book Challenge by Julie Hedlund. I found it to be an amazing community of picture book authors from all levels, from beginning to seasoned. And anybody who doesn't know what the 12 by 12 picture book challenge is, I tell everybody, I don't know, like she doesn't pay me, I promise. But it's basically registration opens at the end of December, beginning of January, you register, and then you're put into, you have access to a platform. And on that platform, there are webinars, like monthly webinars about writing craft from seasoned professionals, editors, and agents. So I found that really helpful, just the educational part of it. You can upload your manuscripts for critique. So it's either critique by other people in the community, or they also have what they call like ninja critique people who are, again, seasoned authors who've been multiple publishing. They will come and make notes or give you feedback on your work. And so the whole idea is that you are committing to 1 year of writing a manuscript and or editing a manuscript. So in January, for instance, you would write one manuscript. In February, you would revise that manuscript, but you would also write a new manuscript. And the idea is to help you slowly figure out what your writing routine looks like. But also by the end of the year, if you've found community, you find critique partners, you've uploaded your stuff, you have at least 3 to 5 really solid manuscripts at the end of the year that then you can take into a querying phase if that's what you want to do. And so that's what I did. I did 12 by 12. I found it just tremendously helpful. But I also expanded on learning craft. And again, like I'm always like craft, craft, craft. People are like, I don't want to hear craft anymore. But like, I'm like, you don't understand. That's what helps you become a published author. When you learn craft, when you know different devices, when you know what's wrong with your work and how to make it better, those are the times when you all of a sudden you start finding your voice and you become a stronger writer, and you do find that you're getting more yeses because people, editors, agents, they all understand. You understand the craft of writing, not just coming up with good ideas.
Right. And I first became familiar with you when you were interviewed on a book chat on 12 by 12. So that's when I first saw your book and I loved it. I saw you read that book, To Boldly Go, on there. But yeah, and I don't work for 12 by 12 either, but I found that seeing Julie Headland, that was the key point in my path to getting published and getting my book deals. And some of the a cup I haven't announced everything, but I've had some success with manuscripts I put in the 12 by 12 challenge and got those critique ninjas. So I recommend that for everyone wanting to write picture books. It's well worth it.
I love that. You are the first person that I have met, like just kind of like with very little, like we're just getting to know each other,
Yeah.
but that you had also a great experience. I mean, I know a lot of people that have had great experiences with 12 by 12, but it's like I've known them through that. So
Right.
you're the first person I'm meeting on the other side of it that
Yeah.
you've had a really good experience too. That makes me so happy
Yeah, because I've
because
had
your book is
Julie on here.
beautiful.
Yeah, and I just stumbled because I kept all the people I saw with book deals were in 12 by 12 with picture book, some of my most admired authors. And I'm like, I was kind of scared to join, or I don't know why. But then when I joined, it has helped me so much. And I've met so many different people. And it has definitely taught me how to write picture books from being in the 12 by 12 and what I need to be doing. And another thing is that they have you read other picture books when you put yours in for critique. And that was helpful for me to learn how to write picture books as well, critiquing other people's books or
Oh,
manuscripts.
I'm so glad you said that, Tanya, because that again, like I think that's also just so fundamental to being a good writer is reading. I
Mm-hmm.
had, when I first started, somebody, a mentor, tell me that I needed to read 500 picture books before I queried. And I was like, what?
500. I've heard of hundreds of 500. It's really a lot.
500. They were like 500. And what they said was by the time you get to like between 250 and 350 picture books, you'll start to understand like what a good picture book is and why it's a good picture book. You'll be able to understand like, okay, here's the rule that this author broke to do this really unique thing,
Right.
right? And so that's another reason why I tell people and that happened. I was so angry and moody about it. I was like, I don't want to read through it.
I know. And actually, I read your book, To Boldly Go, because one of my upcoming books is a historical fiction. And so I used yours kind of as a model when I was trying to structure how I was telling the story, because I like the unusual way, how you started talking about them as a family watching TV and watching Star Trek. The book's about Star Trek, or
Mhm.
one of the characters. So that was kind of a mentor text for my book. So yeah, that's very helpful.
Wow, thank you. That makes me that well, I'm humbled by that. And I wish, you know what, honestly, I wish I could take credit for that. I can't take credit for how that book opened. That book opened a completely different way in when it was acquired. And that was all of my editor, Tamar Mays. because that opening was part of my author's visit, I'm sorry, my author's note,
Mhm.
where I was explaining like why Star Trek was so important to me, why Nichelle Nichols was so impactful to my life, and again, space and space exploration, and beyond that, being the first Black woman who wasn't in a position of servitude. She was, commander of communications.
Yeah.
I love writing, I love communication. But so it was really Tamar who saw like, how do we, and I think it was such a brilliant idea because, we're talking about this TV show and this person and their impact that happened over 50 years ago. So how do you get kids to connect with that? And
Mhm.
so that was her reasoning of like, I really love how this opens because it shows like, here's a young child, young girl, and now we're going to see what the impact of this TV show had on this young girl's life. Kids can connect to that young girl. They can connect to her watching a TV show that she loves so much. And then they can start thinking about like, well, what's the impact of the people of the characters or the celebrities who I like, what are the impact? I mean, those are some of the things that I talk about in
Mhm.
my author visit, depending on the age range. I do start to talk about like, who are your heroes and why are they your heroes? What have they done? Have you looked up what they've done? What kind of people are
Mhm.
they? And what kind of impact do you think that they're going to make on your life or make on the world? And I just really love having those conversations. Sorry, I just kind of went off
No,
the rails on that.
I like that. And what I like, it's been a while since I read your book, but you also had layers in it, like you were talking about, I think you talked about Dr. Martin Luther King or historical figures.
Mhm.
And that's what I love about picture books that I want many people in self-publishing who, if you don't have craft work, when you're studying these books, they have layers of all kinds of information woven in. So that's so important to making it a rich book and getting it picked up by a publisher because you have those layers in telling all of, because that is why it was so fascinating to me as an adult learning all this from reading your book.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm really proud of this book. I really am. And I think the other thing that I'm really proud of also, again, like working with Tamar Maison, it was just a blessing and a gift because it's, obviously it's talking about a real experience of Nichelle Nichols and the racism that she received on this TV show on the production lot. Um, and and I was like, but here's the thing, I don't want to water down what was happening in the 60s. It was an
Mhm.
awful, tumultuous, horrible time that all children were seeing on the news.
Mhm.
Like they were watching Black kids, Black people get mauled by German shepherds. They saw Black kids, Black people getting arrested and thrown into the back of police trucks, paddy wagons. You had people you had kids who were watching, you know, Black people getting beaten and flowered. So I'm like, if kids in the 50s were watching this on TV, kids in 2024 can see it in a book so that they can remember and understand just how horrific the treatment was and why the civil rights movement was so important.
Right.
And I'm really glad we didn't water that down, especially in lieu of the book challenges that are happening, the book bans are happening, and people trying to rewrite history and, remove critical race theory. I'm really glad that she was willing to go down that journey with me of just being really honest about that time.
Right. Right, because it has a lot of rich history. It's not just about Star Trek characters, but it's telling a lot about our history. Now, to shift gears a little bit, we only have a few minutes left, but with your journey into joining 12 by 12 and getting immersed in that and learning craft, what steps did you take to get the publishing deal? What can people do when they're doing things like that? What other things do they need to be doing?
Oh, you mean in terms of like trying to get an agent,
Yes. So
that
what
part
did
of it,
you
or
do after you joined 12 by 12? You worked on craft. Then what did you do?
then I sent out a query for a book, a picture book. It was a historical picture book. I sent it out to 25 agents and got 20 rejections.
That's normal. Hey, that's
Yeah.
normal. Welcome to our
Um,
world.
right, exactly. I had one agent who did respond to it, and she was interested, and then she ghosted me.
Oh,
Never heard from her again.
man.
Yeah.
What? Ah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's okay. It's okay. And you know what I mean? Yeah, in retrospect, I look back at it, I'm like, no, I understand. So, and I see that's growth. Look at that growth. I can look back and be like, no, I understand why. But, so that was the thing that I did wrong was sending out this one manuscript to 25 agents. What I tell people to do now is to make a list, research, definitely research all agents because agents are not equal in many ways. There's a lot of scam artists out there, but there's also a lot of people who you're looking for someone who loves your work, who's going to fight for your work, not just the person who says yes. And so the next time I went back through the rest of my manuscripts. I pulled out three that I really thought were strong and I liked them. And so I made a list. I researched probably for about a month and a half. I got the publisher's marketplace account so I could go in and look at what deals agents had done, who they represented. And I made my list. I think my new list was like about 15 agents.
Mm,
I took the top four. So I had like a good, better, best, and then like
mm,
like a throwaway. And I sent I queried one of my script manuscripts to those four. One came back and she said, I really love this, but there's this one part with the plot that's not working for me. She's like, I'm gonna have to say no, but I know that you're going to be agented soon,
mm.
which was like the best
Ah,
champagne rejection that I could have gotten.
yeah.
So I made that change. I made the change, sent it out literally like a week later, and I had two offers of
That's
representation.
good. Oh,
So
yeah.
it's about taking the losses. I mean, rejection is not always a bad thing, and I always try to tell people that. For me, rejection is a learning episode. As much as it hurts, there was also like, but I got a nugget to make my work better, and then I got the thing that I wanted.
Right.
So it's welcome criticism, but also be able to, really look at it from a place of, is this helping me or hurting my work? Helping my work or hurting my work?
Mm,
Be okay with rejection. Because rejection also means that you're doing the thing, you know.
mhm.
You're not getting rejections, you're not doing anything. So you're doing the thing, you should be proud of
I
that.
need to get my kids in front of you. Get the kids in front.
You are,
Yes.
you're the thing. And it's just about persistence. You just have to keep going, and
Mm,
and you just have to believe in your work, and then you will find that person who is just like, I love your work. The
yeah.
reason why I went with the agent who I went with, who was Mary Cummings, was because she took my manuscript when she replied and offered me representation. She took my manuscript, cut and pasted, and put in the notes of what she would want me to change.
Hmm.
There was one thing I didn't agree with. So when we got on the call for representation, I was like, so this note you made, and she and I were able to talk it out. And we realized that it was because I was missing a word or two that it changed what I was trying to say. And
Hmm.
so I made that change, and she's like, yeah, that's clear. And so I got a chance to find out, like, what would it be like if I didn't agree with her notes? How would she treat that? How would she treat my response to it if I don't agree with it, or I want to move forward? And so it was that was the reason why I went with her. And I think if I can say this, if there's one thing that I want anybody to know about an agent that's so important, do not be scared of your agent. Your agent works for you. This is a partnership. It's a
Hmm.
collaboration. At no time should you not feel like you can't tell your agent anything, whether you're angry, mad, upset, disappointed. Your agent should be able to take all of that and like make it work for you. Like that's the only thing I can say. If you're scared of your agent, you've got the wrong
Hmm.
agent. And I know so many authors who are scared of their agent, and I just don't understand
They're
that.
making money off of you. Yeah,
That's
they're.
right. That's right. Exactly. So, yeah. So I just say stick with it. And everybody, there's so many different paths to getting, published that just because don't compare yourself to somebody else because that's their path and you'll find yours.
Right, right, right. So those are plenty of nuggets that you've shared for people. Yeah, those are great tips that you give. And really, even with getting an agent, there's still rejection afterwards when you're going on submission trying to get your book sold. So you have to have a thick skin all the way around
You
to
really
survive
do.
the writer.
That's the
Yes.
best way to put it, a thick skin. You just really
Yeah, it
do.
just never Brand. So just grin and keep writing. Keep on writing. Smile and keep writing. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking this time, Angela, to share this information. I'm sure it's going to help a lot of people. Can you share where we can connect with you? People can find you and find out more about your books and buy them.
Absolutely. Best place is angeladalton.com, my website. I have a love-hate relationship with social media. I am on the grams at Angela Dalton underscore author. So I do post like events and things there. But yeah, those are the two places you can find
Okay.
me.
Well, thank you again for
Thank
your
you.
time. Thank you,
Tonya, thank
everybody, for
you.
tuning in. Yay! I'm so glad. I'm sure we'll see each other in person again at some event. So nice meeting you in Rhode Island, and I look forward to seeing you again.
You too. Thank you so much. And thank you for doing this. And congratulations on your
All right.
beautiful book.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. We'll see everybody next time for another episode of Write This. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.